we have to first, understand that this feast of Pascha is the most important day in the lives of Orthodox Christians, right? It holds the title of Feast of Feasts. It's the most important commemoration in the Orthodox calendar. Our understanding of salvation is predicated on the resurrection of Christ. In fact, the reading today, which comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, tells us that if Christ does not rise from the dead, our faith is in vain. Christianity is in vain. We ought not to become believers. So his resurrection seals the deal, so to speak. The climax of the meaning of the incarnation, the meaning of the entire history of creation, the meaning of our lives centers on the resurrection. And so this feast, it eclipses, it overshadows any event, any commemoration, anything we could consider. And this is one of the reasons why the celebration of Pascha is quite lengthy. And in fact, it's its own spiritual season in the church calendar. If we look at the demarcations of St. Yared's Dugwa, one of the seasons set aside is the season of Fasika. It starts from Pascha, which was last week on Sunday, all the way until the Feast of Pentecost. It's known in the West as Eastertide. We call it Fasika. These are 50 days, 50 days in which we are feasting and enjoying. And when I say enjoy, I mean it in the classical sense. That is, we are receiving the joy of the resurrection. During these 50 days, there are no fasting days, right? Usually we would fast Wednesdays and Fridays. We don't fast those. There's no fasting whatsoever. Each Sunday of the 50 days is treated as a Paschal Sunday. The early antiphonal hymns are centered on different aspects of the resurrection of Christ. The liturgy holds the same Paschal melody, so it's through and through about the resurrection of Christ. Many people are often curious as to why we as Orthodox celebrate Pascha differently from some of those in the West. This is a long story, and I ought not to spend much time, but the short version is that the Orthodox Church, as usual, has stuck to what it inherited from the Holy Fathers. The date of Pascha in the Orthodox Church was set 1,700 years ago in 325 in the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea, when Saint Dionysius the Humble set forth the Alexandrian calculations for the festal day, which were accepted by the rest of the patriarchates. And so, to this day in the Ethiopian Rite, in the very beginning of New Year, the ranking priest of each parish will recite these ancient calculations, what we call the Bahira Sab, or the Sea of Thought, to declare the correct date of the movable feasts of the year, one of those being Pascha, right? Pascha is not a set feast. It moves up and down with each coming of the year. So this is how the date of Pascha is determined. After the invention of the Gregorian calendar in the West, they broke off from the ancient canon. The Orthodox continues the use of the ancient Christian Julian calendar. And so, like in all things, it's the Orthodox Church that kept the real, true, and continued tradition of the feast. With regards to Alexandria, which determined the date of the festal feast, and of course, we ourselves, we receive our rights from them, Pascha is the day of the Festal Letter. So in their tradition, the patriarch delivers the Festal Letter, the letter of decree from the Holy Throne on Pascha. And in church history, the Festal Letter of St. Athanasius, which lays out the canon of the New Testament as we know it today, that was declared on Pascha. So it shows us that it's a very important day, both in the spiritual life of the church as well as in the administrative life of the church. Another ancient tradition behind the celebration of Holy Pascha is the tradition of fire. In the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, we light torches and candles during the Paschal service. We sing the hymn which says, "Send upon us your light, to us who believe in your resurrection." In other corners of the Orthodox world, fire is also lit as a commemoration of the Holy Resurrection, as a remembrance that the darkness of the enemy could not overthrow the fiery divinity of Christ. Furthermore, just as we set the last week before Pascha as an especially rigorous and ascetical time for contemplation on the death of Christ, right? That was Samuna Hamamat. We set the first week after Pascha as an especially joyous and continuous feast in celebration of the resurrection of Christ. So that's Samuna Fasika. The week before Pascha is Holy Week, and in the same manner, the week rated after Pascha is known in the Orthodox Church as Bright Week. We call this week Bright Week because it's a commemoration of the shining of the Paschal flame, of the Paschal candle, that is Christ. This week, the Paschal week, the bright week, is a week in which the church fully concentrates her joy, her energies, on the concentration of the resurrection, or on the celebration of the resurrection of Christ. So each day of Bright Week is a renewed celebration of the same Sunday of Pascha. And in fact, in the Orthodox tradition, the days of Bright Week, this past week, is treated as a single day. It's treated as a continuity of Sunday. And so for those who can, they observe Bright Week as one Christian Sabbath, as one Santa Christian, in which joyful prayer is done, in which the Eucharist is received, in which there is familial feasting, in which there's rest from the usual work routine. And for those of us who do have to go back to work, we celebrate this week with joy. We celebrate this week with feasting. We celebrate this week by being with our friends and family. So this is an especially great week. During the days of Bright Week, the Paschal Liturgy is done every day with the same readings and the same Paschal hymns of Saint Yared, of Qudus Yared, that were sung on Sunday are repeated with slight alterations in some of the antiphons. And this is regardless of what feast there is. Doesn't matter if it's a feast of Christ, if it's a feast of the Theotokos, if it's a feast of the angels or the saints. If it falls on Bright Week, the celebration is the Paschal service. There is a mystical interpretation behind Bright Week, which starts with the Paschal hymn that is sung in the liturgy, which is taken from the Psalms of David. It says, "This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it." This is the psalm that's sung in the middle of the Paschal liturgy, starting on Sunday. It's sung across the world during Pascha, and it may prompt us to ask, what's the Paschal significance behind such a passage? Why is this the hymn, the song which we are singing during Pascha? And to understand this, we have to look into the Orthodox understanding behind Sunday. Sunday, also known as the Lord's Day, was from the apostolic times the day in which the altar had to be celebrated with divine liturgy. So there's a lot of days in which liturgy can be celebrated. In fact, ideally, liturgy would be done every day. But the day that every single church, all of the Aviata Christiana have to do the liturgy is on Sunday. I'm sure you've realized that at this point. This Sunday, as Qudus Yared puts it, is the Sabbath of Christians. It's Sanbata Christian. Sunday is when creation first entered existence. It's the first day. Sunday is also the day when creation was reborn into salvation, because Sunday was the day that the Lord resurrected, that the Lord chose to rise again. And so Saint Yared says in his hymn for Pascha, in the Angargari, which is done during the Mahari, during the antiphons, antiphonary service, he says, "Today there is joy on the Sabbath of Christians, for Christ has risen from the dead. Sanctify, honor, and elevate this day above all days." So Sunday is elevated above all other days by Christians. It's the day of salvation. It's the day of life. And not only that, but Sunday is also the day that Christ will return again, right? It's necessary for us to always look at all things within an eschatological light, within an eschatological interpretation. The Fathers refer to Sunday as the 8th day. It's referred to as the 8th day. And there are two meanings to this. As we all know, God created the universe in the course of 6 days. This 8th day, the first, as we all know, as I said before, God created the universe in the course of 6 days. There are no specifications as to whether these days were 24-hour periods. In fact, the original Hebrew uses a term which can translate as a general period of time. So it could be 6 ages, 6 days, 6 epochs, 6 eras, we don't know. And then we're told on the 7th day he rested. But we aren't told that the 7th day ends, right? In a sense, the 7th day continues right up until the moment that Christ will come again, until the moment that the age to come commences, which in turn we can note as the 8th day. The week, as we know it, consists of 7 days, a reflection of the 7 days of creation. But when Christ comes again, time and space will cease to hold their post-lapsarian existence, and the week will pour into eternity via what we can call the 8th day. So these are the two interpretations, so to speak, of the 8th day. In the liturgical life of the church, the Sunday on which Christ arose grants us the ability to have a foretaste, to have the experience of the eighth day. We celebrate Pascha and all of the Sunday services with the joy of a wedding. And so if you remember, we prepare during Holy Week by contemplating about Christ the bridegroom. And we talked about how the bridegroom comes, and we have to prepare ourselves like the wise virgins. And Sunday is when he comes. Sunday is when we, as the wise virgins who lit our lamps with oil, come and celebrate the wedding of Christ in the church. So to honor the mystery of the eighth day, experienced by the Christian through the koinonia of the faithful in the liturgical service, the fellowship, centering on the communion of the believer in the Holy Eucharist, we treat the whole of Bright Week as one day, so that we can taste the eternity of the never-ending day of light in the age to come. So we can taste the ceaseless present, in which the Sun of Righteousness, Jesus Christ, shines continuously before his beloved, the Holy Church. So this is what we mean when we say, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad. Of course, God has made all days. But the day which St. David talks about, and the day which all of us look forward to and celebrate, is the day of Sunday.